When the truth reveals itself too late, you realize that all these years you lived in a world that didn't exist. My name is Oscar, I'm 38 years old and I'm a realtor in New York. My profession requires me to read people, understand their needs, dreams, see them in their new apartment even before they move in. Real estate rates in Manhattan and Queens make me quite successful. I know every corner of Astoria, I know where valuable properties will be in 2 years, I know exactly what house a young family with children needs. This ability to predict, to listen, to be one step ahead, it made me quickly leave behind my first marriage when I was younger and more foolish. Back then I didn't see the signs. Back then I just moved on. I married Anabel 6 years ago. Those were beautiful years in New York. She worked as an HR manager at a large corporation, handling hiring, firing, all that corporate machinery. She said people were her calling, that she understood them, helped them choose the right path. I believed in that. I believed in her. Then Daniel was born. 4 years ago. A tiny person with my brown eyes and Anabel's hair. I became a father and the whole world changed. I started thinking about his future, where he'd study, which neighborhoods would have apartments near good schools, what kind of people would surround him. My parents divorced when I was 5. They screamed, sent letters through lawyers, showed me their bitterness with deliberately chosen cruelty. I swore I wouldn't be like that. When Anabel and I had Daniel, I told her, we'll do this differently. We'll be a modern family. We'll respect each other. We won't pollute this space with our pain. She agreed. She said that was the truest definition of love, when you refuse your dark sides for the sake of the people you love. Spring 2024 is when everything started falling apart, but I didn't notice. Or rather, I noticed but didn't want to see. The first signal was the simplest: time. Anabel started staying at work 2 to 3 hours longer than before. A mid-level HR manager doesn't typically stay in the office past 5 p.m. I knew this because Anabel's friends from the company sometimes mentioned they were heading home while she was still sitting at her computer. It was strange but not scary. People change, right? Work gets harder. Then the late arrivals from work began. Not 2 or 3 times a month. Every 2 to 3 days. She'd call me, meeting ran late. There was an accident on Queensboro Bridge, all traffic paralyzed. Stopped at the supermarket, stood in line forever. Each time, some ordinary reason that raised no questions. I didn't notice deliberately, but one of my clients, he works as a policeman in that area, once told me, Oscar, I saw you near that supermarket on Steinway Street when you were supposed to be at a meeting in Manhattan. Was that you? That was the first moment I felt something cold in my chest. I checked my records. That day I really wasn't at that supermarket. But Anabel said she'd been delayed there. At first I dodged this thought. We had Daniel. We had a joint mortgage on an apartment in Astoria. We had routines. Sunday in the park, Wednesday with my sister Caitlin, Friday with Anabel's parents in Brooklyn. How can a person have an affair when they have this kind of life? But I started checking. At first I thought I was an idiot. Then I thought I was a smart person protecting my family. Then I just became a man looking for answers. I started going to her car, parked near the office building when she wasn't home. Searched the glove compartment. Those motel receipts, not recent. They were from the past 3 months. 4 different motels, all within a 20-kilometer radius of our house, in Astoria and Long Island City. Condoms in a sealed package that I hadn't bought. On the back seat, hair. Black short, not mine. And cologne I wasn't familiar with. For men. The scent warm, woody, cheaper than what I buy myself. I had 3 options. Go to a lawyer, go home and talk to her, or continue my investigation. I chose the third option. I knew it was pathological, but I didn't care anymore. My sister Caitlin is 3 years younger than me. She works as a secretary at a law firm. When I told her about my suspicions, she said, Oscar, you shouldn't have done this alone. This is too painful. You should have told me earlier. I replied, I'm not telling her yet. I need the whole truth. Not half. Everything. Through her contacts, Caitlin gave me a private detective's number. No, wait, I didn't do that. I did it myself. I did it as a man who had to know. I checked her email when she was sleeping. I found correspondence. With a colleague at work. His name was Owen. An HR specialist who worked in the office next to hers. Their letters were diplomatic. No direct references to sex, but the hints were obvious. I miss your touch, Anabel wrote. The weekend was wonderful, but it ended too soon, Owen wrote. I checked the calendar. These letters dated back about 2 years. This affair ended about a year ago. Then I found other correspondence. With a gym trainer where Anabel did yoga. His name was Oliver. The correspondence was from a year ago. Less intimate but equally obvious. She asked him to look after her, wrote that she needed more health. This was how they organized meetings at the gym after closing when no one was there. I sat in my office in Manhattan that day. It was Tuesday, May 1st, 2024, and I just cried. Not loudly. Just sat and tears flowed. My assistant asked 3 times if I was okay. I said I had a migraine. But that wasn't all. The real red flag appeared 2 weeks later. Anabel said she was going to a corporate HR training in Palermo. 3 days, all expenses paid by the company. This was June, the beginning of summer. She said she needed a break, that she was tired. I replied, of course. Rest. Take care of yourself. I'll manage 3 days with Daniel. I should have been happy that my wife was developing professionally. Then I checked the credit card statement. She bought plane tickets for 2 names. 2 names, her own and Rudolph Mitchell. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click like if you enjoy this story. I always read your comments and analyze which stories you like best so that I can create better stories. Thank you. I will continue the story. My hands started trembling. I googled the name. No results. Then I looked through our utility bills. Near our name. Rudolph Mitchell. New tenant. Moved to Astoria about 1.5 years ago. Neighboring apartment. I asked the neighbor who lives near us. She said, oh yes, such a handsome man. Black hair, athletic build. He often goes out in the evening, but usually returns by morning. I often hear she paused, her face turned red. She knew. The whole building probably knew. I found him on social media. Rudolph Mitchell, 29 years old, warehouse worker at Amazon, New Jersey. In his photos, young, attractive, muscular. On his page were several photos with Anabel. They hid their faces, but it was her. Her sleeve, her habit, her hair. The photos dated back about 1 year. Palermo was a lie. It was the Bahamas. She was flying with Rudolph to Nassau Island. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to breathe. I waited for her to come home from work. It was Thursday, June 15th. I told Daniel that Grandma Caitlin would take him to the ice cream park. I urgently needed to talk to Anabel alone. When she came home, she looked happy. She had a tan and improbably fresh expression. She kissed me on the cheek, asked about Daniel, started telling me about the training. I listened to every word. Every lie felt like a shard. Anabel, I said. She stopped. We need to talk. It took me 5 minutes to tell her what I knew. Receipts. Hair. Correspondence. Plane tickets. Rudolph Mitchell. She didn't deny it. She just cried. Then she said, I'm sorry. Then she said, I need to go to the doctor soon. I asked why. She said, because I found out I'm pregnant by him. By Rudolph. I took a test 2 weeks ago. I sat on the couch and the whole world turned gray. I already had an abortion, she added. A week after I found out. I knew it was wrong. I knew I couldn't have this child. So I went to a clinic in Jersey City and did everything. I couldn't travel to Palermo in that condition, so I called it training. At that moment I heard something tear inside me. Not like anger. Not like despair. Like absolute emptiness. Like that moment when you realize the person you loved never really existed. I asked, how many more? How many more what? She asked. How many more were there? I asked. After Owen? After Oliver? Her face changed. She knew I knew about both. It wasn't real each time, she said. They were different people, different parts of my life. With Owen it was an experiment. I wasn't happy, Oscar. I was directly you could say I actually wanted something else. With Oliver it was fitness. Physical feeling. But with Rudolph, with him it's different. Different how? I asked. With him I feel alive. He doesn't look at me like a mother. He looks at me like a woman. You forgot what that looks like, Oscar. You forgot how to look at me. I don't remember what I answered. I think I just got up and left. The next 2 weeks were the worst of my life. I slept at the office. I didn't talk to Anabel. I called my lawyer, Rose Mitchell. Really, both she and Rudolph had the surname Mitchell, but it was a coincidence, and we started preparing documents. Rose said, you have everything you need. Evidence of multiple affairs. Evidence of pregnancy and abortion. This will be grounds for divorce and custody of your son. But Oscar, you must understand, she'll fight back. She'll say you violated her privacy. This could complicate the case. I said, I need custody. Full or primary. And I'm ready to do everything possible. Rose agreed. She was a good lawyer, cold, logical, without emotions. At the trial, 2 months later, I presented everything. Receipts. Correspondence. Photos from social media. Medical bills I found in a folder on her computer. The judge listened without showing emotion. Anabel said she loved me. Said these were mistakes. Said she'd go to a psychologist, that she was changing. Her lawyer said she was a good mother, and even having problems with fidelity didn't mean she shouldn't have partial custody of her son. But the judge decided in my favor. I got primary custody of Daniel, 85% of the time. Anabel could see him every other weekend. With real estate everything was more precise, 50-50 as required by New York law. But I had money. I'd been earning all these years and I hadn't spent strange amounts on hotels and plane tickets. I bought diamonds from a dealer in Manhattan for $35,000. I kept them in a safe. This was my fund in case Anabel tried to use mediation for a larger share. It was, so to speak, my safety cushion. But then I did something I didn't even tell Rose about. I knew Rudolph worked at Amazon. I knew Owen worked at the same HR company. I knew Oliver trained at a gym on Astoria Boulevard. I found their supervisors. I didn't tell them who I was. I just sent them emails from an anonymous account, referencing concerns about unprofessional employee behavior. For Oliver I wrote about how he started romantic relations with a gym client, which violates ethical norms. Some gyms might tolerate this, but the one where he worked was expensive, premium class. They wouldn't tolerate it. Oliver lost his job in a month. For Owen I wrote similarly but didn't name him directly. I wrote about someone sleeping with an HR colleague and how it harms team dynamics. The HR company conducted an investigation. Owen received an official reprimand. He was transferred to a lower position with less salary. For Rudolph I wrote a letter to Amazon about how his behavior affects production and teamwork. I didn't name specific incidents, just wrote enough to provoke an investigation. Rudolph received an official warning. Management started watching him. I also contacted Anabel's parents. They were a conservative Catholic family. I told them everything. About the 3 men. About the abortion. About how their daughter chose someone else. Maybe she had a mental disorder, or maybe people have choices and this was Anabel's choice. Anabel's parents stopped communicating with her. They didn't ask who I was or why I was doing this. They just stopped. My parents, on the contrary, became my support. My father said, "Son, your first wife was a mistake of youth. This one was maybe an even more serious mistake. But now you have Daniel. Focus on him." I sold the apartment in Astoria. It was specifically the place where Rudolph lived, where this whole story unfolded. I bought a new apartment in another Queens neighborhood, Forest Hills. 3 rooms, good school nearby, park on the other side of the street. This neighborhood was far enough from Rudolph's residence and Anabel's workplace that she couldn't have accidental meetings. Anabel moved with Rudolph to New Jersey. They found an apartment near his Amazon warehouse. She found a new job at another company, but with less salary because recommendation letters from her previous company were cold. The first year after the divorce was the worst time of my life. I pretended to be strong for Daniel, but at night I just sat in this new apartment, in this new building where I knew no one, and I looked at his bedroom and I taught myself how to start over. Caitlin often helped me. She'd take Daniel when I needed time for myself. She never asked me about my revenge, she just knew I was doing something. One day she said, "Oscar, you can stop now. It's over. You won." I replied, "I don't know if I won. I know I lost the wife I thought I knew. I know my son needs his mother one night a month instead of every day. I know I feel empty." "But you have Daniel," Caitlin said. "Yes, I have Daniel," I replied. "When I was 5, my father left my mother. He said he wasn't happy, that life was too short to live it in despair. He moved to Florida with one of his co-workers. I didn't see him for 2 years. My mother cried, but she never told me he was a bad person. She never tried to use me as a weapon. When I grew up, I understood she could have done that, but she didn't. She said he left her, but he didn't leave me. He was a father who didn't want to be a father, but that was his choice, not mine. I swore I wouldn't be like that with my son. When Daniel asks about Mom, I tell the truth, but I don't tell him what she did. I tell him that sometimes people make mistakes, that love isn't always enough to keep people together. I tell him she loves him and the days they spend together are special days. Daniel has my brown eyes, but he has Anabel's sociability. He makes friends easily, he's optimistic, he believes people are good. I'm afraid this will hurt him in life, but I also know my pessimism shouldn't be his pessimism. 2 years after the divorce, this was already June 2026, I accidentally ran into Rudolph at a supermarket in New Jersey. I was driving there to talk because one of my clients was interested in that area for investments. He was standing at the register with Anabel, with Daniel holding his mother's hand. Our eyes met. I said nothing. She turned pale when she saw me. Rudolph didn't know who I was. I bought what I needed and left. On the way I couldn't focus on anything. I thought all night about whether my actions were fair. Was I a hero or was I guilty? Then I got out of the car and called Daniel. I said, "Hi son. How are things? I miss you." He said, "Dad, can you pick me up early? I want to go to the park with you." I replied, "Of course. You have tomorrow off, right? We'll go to the park. We'll go rollerblading. We'll eat ice cream. We'll be together." When I hung up, I realized that's all I needed. That's all I ever needed. That's all I'll ever need. Revenge is a cup of poison you drink, hoping the other person ends up in hell. But you're the one who ends up in hell swallowing that poison. I purge this poison from my system every day with Daniel. Now it's 2 years later. Daniel is going to first grade. I live in Forest Hills in the same apartment. I continue selling real estate, but now I select clients more carefully. I don't take those who secretly plan to tell me about their problems. My parents see Daniel once a month. Caitlin. Once a week she spoils him, but not so much that it becomes excessive. Anabel sees Daniel every other weekend as the court decided. She moved away from Rudolph 2 years ago. They broke up. It seems passionately in love people aren't always long-term partners. Now she lives alone with Daniel on the days when he's with her, and she tries to be a better mother. I think she's changed, but I also know some wounds don't heal completely. One day when I met Anabel to hand over Daniel, she said, "Oscar, I know you took revenge. I know what you did." I didn't deny it. I just looked at her. "You destroyed his career," she said about Rudolph. "Oliver lost his job. Owen is constantly depressed because they call him a homewrecker." "I know," I said. "It's unfair," she said. "They're not guilty of anything. I was guilty." "Then why did you do it?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just bit her lip and smiled sadly. "I don't know. I don't know who I am. I didn't know all these years. Even now I don't know." I knew she was telling the truth. This was a moment of crystallization for me, a moment when I understood that Anabel wasn't the monster I'd imagined. She was just a person who got lost in her own life and made choices she couldn't explain even to herself. But knowing this didn't make me less desperate. Knowing this didn't give me back the wife I thought I had. It just made everything more complicated, more gray, less black and white. Daniel asked me the other day, I said, changing the subject, "Why you and I don't live together anymore?" He asked if it was his fault. Anabel turned pale. "What did you tell him?" I told him it wasn't his fault. I told him that sometimes parents realize they're better living separately, that love between father and mother is different from love for children. I told him he'd get both. That both love him. "You're lying to him," Anabel said. "How?" I asked. "You're telling him it's a simple situation when it's not. You understand, but he doesn't. He's hurt, Oscar. He's only 4 years old. For him this means his mother doesn't love him enough to stay." I'd never thought about it that way. I thought about what my father said, that he left my mother but didn't leave me. But for a small child this distinction doesn't exist. For a small child, a parent who leaves is a parent who leaves. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "I don't know," Anabel said. "I just know he'll suffer. And it's my fault. It's both our faults." This conversation changed something in me. Not in my relationship with Anabel, it remained cold, professional, calculated. But in my understanding of what I'd done. I turned to a psychologist. First time in my life. I told her everything, about my first wife, about my mother, about how I took revenge, about how I destroyed the careers of 3 people without thinking about what it meant for them. The psychologist, her name was Dr. Nicole, said, "You're not responsible for their choices. But you're responsible for yours. The choice to avenge a wound is a human feeling. But how you realized it, that was a choice you made." "I was protecting my son," I said. "You were protecting yourself," she replied. "Your son needs a father who lives in the present, not a father consumed by anger and the need to release old wounds." I told her about my father, about how he left my mother, how it traumatized me, how I swore I'd be different. How could I be different when I was behaving like him, leaving a trail of destruction behind me just in a different way? "You're not like your father," Dr. Nicole said. "Your father left his family because it was hard for him to bear responsibility. You stayed. You fight for your son every day. But you're also guilty of holding on to your own wounds." I went to the psychologist every week for a year. Gradually I started releasing the anger. Gradually I understood that Anabel was a person, not an enemy. That Rudolph, Owen and Oliver were people who made choices that were wrong, but choices nonetheless. In the 3rd year after the divorce I received a letter from Rudolph. He wrote that he was fired from Amazon because they called him unprofessional, though he didn't know why. He said it destroyed his confidence. He wrote that he knew I did this because Anabel told him about my revenge. "I don't know if you'll read this letter," Rudolph wrote, "but I wanted to tell you I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I had no right to bring chaos into your family. I was selfish and irresponsible. I spent 3 years trying to understand something in myself, and I understand now that I hurt you. And I understand why you did it. But I also understand that it made me a broken person." I read this letter 5 times. I showed it to Dr. Nicole. She said, "This sounds like a person doing the work. You're doing the work." I wrote Rudolph a letter. I didn't apologize. I still wasn't ready to do that. But I wrote, "I read your letter. I understand you've been hurt. But my son has also been hurt. His mother is with 2 people while I'm alone with responsibilities. This is life. People hurt each other. We can't change our past, but we can change our future." Rudolph didn't reply to my letter. But a month later I learned from Anabel that he moved to Florida, that he started a new life far from all this. I was satisfied with that. It didn't mean I forgave him. It meant he was moving forward. With Owen everything was different. About a year later I received a letter from his father. Owen died. Suicide. He believed his career was over because they called him a homewrecker at the company. He couldn't find a new job. He couldn't look himself in the eye in the mirror. I don't know how I felt when I read this message. Anger? Guilt? Both? I went to church for the first time in many years. I'm not a religious person, but I needed to do something with what I'd done. I sat in front of the sanctuary and just cried. The priest asked if I wanted to talk. I said, "I don't know if God can forgive me." The priest said, "God forgives everything. But first you must forgive yourself." I wasn't sure I could. About a year later I learned that Oliver was working again as a trainer at a gym in Manhattan. He'd rebuilt himself. This gave me some hope that not everything was destroyed. With Anabel my relationship remained cold, but we found some balance. She didn't try to get me back. I didn't try to be harsh to her when she came to pick up Daniel. We were like 2 people who were once very close, then very far apart, and now just existed in each other's orbits. Daniel grew up a happy child. He had friends, he loved school, he didn't have the trauma I feared he'd have. Or maybe he had it, but he didn't know about it yet. The psychologist said it would come out in different ways as he grew up. That I should be ready for it. When Daniel turned 8 he told me, "Dad, I know about Mom and that guy. I know he lived in the neighboring apartment. I heard you and Aunt Caitlin talking about it." I didn't know what to do. I asked, "What do you think about it?" "I think Mom made bad choices," he said. "But I also think you made bad choices. I heard you talking about how you took revenge." I was shocked. I didn't know Daniel knew about my revenge. I asked, "How did you find out?" "When I was at Mom's, Rudolph was telling her about the letter from you. About how you wrote to him. I was in the next room. I was listening. I sat with this knowledge for some time. Then I said, 'I'm sorry, Daniel. I made choices I shouldn't have made. I was an angry and betrayed person, and I transferred that anger to other people. It was wrong. But they did something bad," Daniel said. "Yes, I agreed. They did something bad. But that doesn't justify me doing something bad in return. It just made everything worse." Daniel thought about this. Then he said, "When I grow up, I don't want to be like Mom who makes bad choices. But I also don't want to be like you who tries to take revenge. I want to be a person who just forgives." At that moment I understood that right now I could give Daniel the greatest wealth I could offer him. It wasn't a house in Forest Hills or money in accounts. It was the opportunity to raise him with less anger than I had. Now Daniel is 12 years old. I still live in the same apartment in Forest Hills. Anabel married another man, a history teacher in Manhattan, and they had a daughter. They live in New Jersey, near Anabel's parents. I've built closeness with Daniel. We go to baseball together, we eat pizza, we talk about his friends and his concerns. Caitlin got married and has her own children. She tells me I should find someone new, that I still have time. I reply that I'm not looking. But that's not true. I just don't want to repeat. I don't want to be hurt again, once again consumed by anger. 2 years ago I received a wedding invitation. It was Oliver. He was marrying a woman he met at the gym. I didn't go, but I sent him a congratulatory letter. I said I was glad he'd rebuilt his life, that he chose forgiveness over revenge. Oliver replied, "I know you were the one who told management about me. I know it. It took me a long time to forgive you, but I did. Because I understood you were a person who was hurt and wanted to hurt back. I understood that feeling. I wanted to hurt you too when I lost my job. But then I realized that hatred is a heavy burden. I chose to put it down. This letter gave me some peace. I showed it to Daniel. He read it and said, "See? That's what I thought about you. People can change. People can choose forgiveness." I look at my son and I understand I gave him more than I took. I gave him pain and problems, but I also gave him a lesson about how not to make the mistakes I made. Seeing the person you loved, who was supposed to hold your hand for life, leave with another person, that's unspeakable pain. But seeing your son forgive it, how he understands your mistakes and decides to do better, that's unspeakable grace. Every day Daniel asks me, "Dad, are you happy?" And I reply, "Yes, son. I'm happy because I have you. Everything else is details." He smiles and goes to play in his room. I listen to his laughter and I understand that everything I did, everything I suffered, everything I subjected other people to, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth that price. If I could turn back time, I'd do everything differently. I wouldn't look for evidence. I wouldn't plan revenge. I'd just talk to Anabel. I'd try to understand what was missing there. I'd try to save our marriage, or if that was impossible, I'd divorce with dignity, not trying to destroy everything I could destroy. But I can't turn back time. I can only live with the consequences of my choice. This isn't a story about justice. This isn't a story about how a bad person got what she deserved. This is a story about how 3 ordinary people made mistakes, how one of them tried to take revenge, and how all of this shattered into beauty and grief and the gradual reworking of what remained. I don't pity Anabel. She has a new life, new husband, new daughter. Oliver has a new job, new wedding, new potential. Rudolph has a new beginning in Florida. But each of them has scars that won't disappear. I also have scars. And Daniel will have them too, even if I try to protect him from them. This is life. This isn't some romance where everything ends perfectly. This is the complicated, beautiful, ugly, wonderful life that we all collectively break and try to piece together. Thank you for watching this video. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.